Happy Thursday. Welcome to the webinar. Today we're going to talk about federal budgets, particularly the budget that was just passed the House a couple weeks ago. So as I was kind of working through this webinar and doing the research and all the stuff, I kind of wanted to make this more useful instead of just another boring budget webinar. So I hope that I succeeded. You guys can give me some feedback as we go through. Feel free to ask questions in the chat and the Q&A button there. And we'll get to those at the end. I got some pretty dense slides to go through, so there's not a large quantity of slides, but I think they're fairly data rich, and hopefully will give you guys the idea of where to go and what to do as we kind of move forward and we watch the budget fights unfold in the Senate and in the House once the Senate passes their budget. All right, so we are OST Global Solutions. My name is David Huff. I'm the CEO. We are a full life cycle business development, capture, and proposal consulting firm. We've won over $27 billion in funded work since 2005. If you count our ceiling values, it's hundreds of billions. We don't count that because that's not dollars that went to our clients. So that's how we measure that metric. We also have the only in the nation registered apprenticeship in government business development and 18 public courses in all aspects of federal business development. Really quick, guys, we sent out a Memorial Day sale a couple weeks ago, and we've extended that sale. So all of our courses have been digitized. They're all on demand. I highly recommend you go check out our website. Take advantage of the deal as you stack multiple courses together. There are discounts. So some of the best training available in the industry. We teach you actually how to do this stuff, not just what it is and lofty process. We actually walk you through what to do task by task and how to use that information. So our apprenticeship program is for your BD staff. So if you have young, promising program managers or young folks in your company that you think would be good, excellent business developers, capture managers, proposal managers, our apprenticeship course is the only in the nation certified by the Federal Department of Labor. Graduates receive a certificate from the Department of Labor upon graduation. We also accept the GI Bill. So any veterans that you have in your organization, if you are a veteran or you have some in your organization, they can use their GI Bill, all chapters, and potentially, if they qualify, can receive their housing stipend as they are going to school or course here in this case. So that's an excellent option for veterans to get trained. I went through a very early version of this course when I was brand new to BD, fresh out of the Army, and that's how I learned what I was doing, and then I've built upon that experience through helping companies grow and winning strategic bids for them. We also run the SIBR and SITR Proposal Lab for Maryland and Alabama. This is through the SBA FAST Grant. So if you have an innovative idea that you think may qualify under a SIBR or SITR, reach out to us. We do a lot of this work. It's an award-winning program. A couple years ago, we won the Tibbetts Award, which is the very best in SBIR programming in the nation. So excellent programs there if you guys qualify. All right, cool. So that's about OST. Let's do a bit of a history lesson and kind of talk about how we got here, talk about where we're going, talk about what still needs to get done, and then what do we do with all of this information, right? So as BD leaders, we need to make decisions about where our companies go, how we allocate resources, and we're largely responsible for whether our company survives or not. So it's really important to get plugged in at the highest levels to understand what changes are coming down so we can get ahead of those and start planning for those in terms of resources, in terms of marketing, in terms of teaming, and all different kinds of business development strategy that goes into that. All right, so why kind of want to walk you through the rationale as to why I put this together. Why does this webinar matter? I think what we're looking at right now is unprecedented to some degree in terms of the pace of the change that we've been going through. So many people on this call, more than likely, and certainly many of our clients, and if you haven't, then somebody has probably been impacted by DOGE at some level or another. We certainly have. Many of our clients who have been going after strategic deals, they've been paused. Contract modifications have slowed down. I don't know if they've been restarting, but some of our clients have been talking about that. So just kind of given the total pace of change, I wanted to take kind of something that should happen every year. It doesn't, but should happen every year, and kind of add some clarity to what's going on, and how do we adapt and change and moving forward. So currently we are living in last year's budget. So that is the full year continuing appropriations and extension act of 2025. This was HR 1968. I did a webinar on this a couple months ago when they passed it. The chart on the right there comes directly from that webinar. That is the anomalies and funding changes that the appropriations bill put into the continuing resolution. So those are the differences over or from the fiscal year 24 budget that was passed back then. Okay. So what a continuing resolution does is it keeps most accounts locked at the fiscal year 24 budgets through September 30th, which is the end of the fiscal year. So only a handful of anomalies in this budget got extra revenue. So a lot of that had to do with disaster relief fund, VA medical care, and select DoD munition buys. Everything else is essentially the same. And one of the things I want to talk to you guys about is a new concept called pipeline drag, where because we're in a continuing resolution without an anomaly or reprogramming authority, agencies generally cannot launch new programs. So many of our agencies are leaning on their recompetes, their option year mods, and existing IDIQs to meet their mission gaps. So I'm going to talk about the impacts of this on your pipeline and maybe what you guys have been seeing, apart from the DOGE and the executive orders that kind of paused acquisitions there for a month or two. This is on top of the continuing resolution, right? So the other thing I wanted to point out is kind of inflation being the stealth cut. So the consumer price index rose 3 to 4%, which is a decrease in real buying power. And then you couple inflation with the contractor escalation that's built into all of our contracts, and our agencies are getting squeezed at both ends. So because the funding levels are last year, prices has risen, escalations have kicked in, and the budgets are essentially 3 to 4% smaller than they were in 2024. So something to keep in mind, particularly as you're pricing out new task orders and new contracts. So what I have moving forward is the House blueprint versus the continuing resolution. So April 10th, the House adopted continuing resolution 14, which is the budget that is currently under consideration in the Senate right now. However, this is a big however, until the 12 appropriations bills or new omnibus clear the Senate, the continuing resolution levels will continue. Okay. So Congress is on the clock. We have 117 days to reconcile the budget bills before the next shutdown. So it's always fun to watch that tick down. So I think now is the time, really, we need to start looking at our capture budgets and the reality and what's happening in the fiscal year 25 reshuffle. So let's talk about pipeline drag here for a minute. Because we're under a continuing resolution, there is a general bar from obligating funds for programs that didn't exist in the fiscal year unless Congress specifically allocated an anomaly. So program offices need to shuffle their FY24 level dollars to cover the must-fund items, pushing discretionary IT, R&D, and services work to the right, and things that are new, right? And these are general rule of thumbs. These are not hard and fast. There's always a little bit of discretion in allocating this money, so it's not 1,000% the same. But what this does is it creates schedule impacts for us as contractors and procurement folks. It delays the pre-solicitations, which delay the draft RFP, which delays the final RFPs, which pushes award compounding through your pipeline, kind of like traffic backing up on the freeway. So that one person, and for those of you in the Beltway, you know exactly what I'm talking about, on 270 on the Legion Bridge, where it's like downhill both ways and then the bridge and someone hits their brakes and then you're backed all the way up to the spur, right? So this also is going to result in hyper competition for the few deals that do move. And one of the things I've been seeing, and this is anecdotal to us, we do a lot of pipeline research for various clients, and we're starting to see more deals kind of trickle out slowly. So they're starting to increase a little bit. I don't know if you guys have seen the same thing, but that's something that we've noticed just over the past couple weeks. But for these new deals, like as far as I can tell, all of the companies that I've spoken to and that we're performing work for, we're seeing a lot more competition on anything that is live, anything that's moving forward. Everybody is piling on into these things. So I think that we're already in this kind of increased world of competition, increased focused on cost cutting and driving the prices down. While at the same time, our employees are asking for more money and so on and so forth. So I think we really need to evaluate our PWIN moving forward. That's going to impact our pipeline forecast, and I'll talk about that later, but just something I wanted to bring up here. So in general, one of the things that I kind of defined in this is, we all know what our pipeline is, right? It's the list of opportunities that move from lead to capture proposals to award, right? At some point in there, we expect to receive a return on investment for the dollars we spent on sales. So what this means, I think, for us is as we look at our metrics, whether you guys, your pipeline is in Excel or you use a CRM, I think we need to look at our forecasted dollar value by stage. And I think we need to take a hard look at that to make sure that we are accurately forecasting what we think we're going to get. So that might need to be adjusted in terms of when the deals are going to drop, when the bookings are expected to hit, potentially even win rate. So something to consider. I think, I put drag here because that's kind of a resistance that's going to slow down the flow. So we had that freeze where very few RFPs came out when President Trump had his executive order that froze all acquisitions pending agency head review. Those deadlines have passed. So we're starting to see that backlog kind of unclog a bit. And then, of course, a lot of people got fired and took the buyout. So this is kind of, to me, this is kind of reminiscent of what we went through in COVID a few years ago, 5 years ago. Wow. I think at some point, maybe in the summer and fall, we're going to be seeing a lot more opportunities drop than we normally do. So this is just me speculating based on what we're seeing in the market right now. So one of the things that I think we need to keep when we're looking at our pipeline, we're working with our capture managers. I think we really need to look at our deal velocity, right? And, it's not just the CR, it's also the DOGE cuts, it's also the Trump executive orders that are impacting acquisition and the changes going on and the fewer people who are in the government. So I think that generally fewer opportunities are entering the funnel, and those already in motion are slowed down or are slowing down. So I think that's kind of the takeaway of this. And that's kind of why when I was thinking about the impacts of this, I came up with pipeline drag. So a little bit of a civics lessons here, because I think that this is going to be important for us to track as things happen. So I don't believe that the president has delivered their overall budget. So I think they're late on that. They're generally late when a new president comes into office, but usually they happen in the beginning of the year. So the agency heads will submit their bottom-up and top-down budget needs per the agency missions and input up the chain of command. The federal agencies will then submit their estimates in accordance with the president's strategy by the summer, which is where we are now. OMB reviews and submits estimates in the fall. President reviews and finalizes the budget and submits to Congress by the first Monday in February. Okay, so that obviously this was the inauguration, and we were having the transition, so a lot of this stuff didn't come out on time. January 15th, this CBO submits the Economic and Budget Outlook Report to the budget committees. This is a really important part here, these budget committees. I'm going to come back to this here in a minute to give you guys some concrete actions on where to go. 6 weeks after that, the president submits budget committees, submit reviews and estimates to the budget committees. April 1st, Senate Budget Committees report budget resolutions. April 15th, Congress completes action on budget resolutions. So I put a big X here because we missed that in 25. So the House adopted the resolution on April 15th. May 15th, the annual appropriations bill that fund agencies may be considered in the House, even if action on budget resolutions has not been completed. June 10th, House Appropriations Committee reports last annual appropriations bill. June 15th, Congress completes action on reconciliation legislation if required. June 30th, House completes action on annual appropriations bill. July 15th, President submits mid-session review of the budget to Congress. October 1st, the fiscal year begins. So, big, long process here. We're already behind. Trump has directed the Senate Republicans to pass the budget and to get reconciliation done to his desk by July 4th. There's some pushback in the Senate on that. He said the same thing at the House on Memorial Day deadline, and I think a lot of observers were watching that and commenting that that was impossible, and somehow it worked, or it happened. So we'll see how that goes. So something to keep in mind here is that usually the president's budget is good information, even if it's early in the cycle. So we didn't get one this year. As you are looking forward to next year, that's a good place to start and kind of get an idea about where the winds are blowing and where the trends are going to be and where the policy fights are going to be. The statutory deadlines are already missed. Obviously, we're operating under the 24 CR until 30 September. That's a typo. I'll fix that before we send it out. Budget line items are important to price to win analysis. So this is where you get your reserve budget from. So when they pass Congress, when they pass these budget committees and you have program line items, that's total funding. So then you can go to do the analysis from USA Spending or from GovWin or Bloomberg, depending on what you subscribe to, and you can subtract out the contract spend and get a kind of a back of the napkin kind of government overhead rate or reserve rate, which is what we call it. So if there's a $100 million program and there's been $70 million allocated to it, then you can generally assume 30%, that extra $30 million is the government reserve. Plan captures on the 2-year time horizon. So we have this fiscal year 25 reshuffle plus the fiscal year 26 request, which will come out end of the year, early next year. DoD is a 7-year budgeting process and a 5-year defense plan. The government shutdown is painful to government contractors, and we might get one. You never know until we get a budget, right? One of the things to keep in mind is that this process has not been completed on time every step since 1997. So fun fact in case you're ever on Jeopardy. So let's dive into the budget here. So budget top line changes here. So one of the things you're probably going to notice is that these are not the numbers that get reported in the news or by Congress. These numbers come from the 30B allocation tables. These 302B allocation tables are what the House Appropriations subcommittees put together, okay? And the reason that we want to use these is because 90% of competed contracting dollars come from the 302B tables, okay? So that's why I use these budgets, and that's why I put the deltas here, because not all of the cuts and not all of the changes are going to impact contractors, okay? So I didn't want to put stuff out there that you're not going to be able to use. So what I did here is I grouped a bunch of these together. This is how the top line budgets get reported. So there are 11 here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yeah. Okay. So there's 11 here. And I did not include the financial services and general government, which is highlighted here in the middle because that increase is so large it blows up the chart. Okay. So just want to throw that out there. I didn't screw this up. There are 12 appropriations bill. This is what they're called. And Treasury, GSA, IRS are their own as well, and it's just their delta was so large that it changed the y-axis there, and you couldn't read anything else. So some of the things, the reason this is useful is to see, hey, where are the biggest changes coming from? Obviously, in the news, State Department, foreign operations with U.S. aids taking the biggest cuts, and that is minus 7.4% on the 302B tables. So pretty significant cuts. Also, military construction and VA medical took 4.2% cuts. Those were the two largest cuts. And then the biggest winners are Treasury, GSA, and IRS. So they have a 72.3% increase. And I don't think I described this very well, but this is a percent change from the fiscal year 24 budget. Okay. So, and we're comparing this to the House budget that just passed that's under consideration in the Senate right now. All right. So the other ones that are getting large increases are commerce, justice, and science. So in commerce, they are gearing up for the 2030 census. So they're going to see really large increases in spending for the census activities. And then the Department of Justice is the deportations and increased law enforcement activities at a national level. There are cuts to the science budget in there, but overall the changes are net positive for those. So on the charts there at the bottom, you have CJS, which is Commercial Justice and Science bucket. That includes Department of Commerce, Department of Justice, NASA, and the National Science Foundation. Other ones here, what else would be interesting? So Department of Defense is giving a 1% increase to their 302B tables. Homeland Security, DHS, and FEMA are getting a almost 5% increase to their 302B tables. And then the legislative branch, I kind of laughed at that. I was like, of course, Congress took care of themselves and made sure that the legislative branch was appropriately funded for inflation. So the legislative branch, if you are a contractor to the architect of the Capitol or another entity that supports Congress, you are going to see a 4.4% increase there. So I hope this is helpful, guys. This is where, like, I didn't want to come out here and tell you guys the top line numbers that don't mean anything. So when you are looking through these, when you're looking through these budget documents, just remember that the majority of contracting dollars come from the 302B tables. There's a lot of other budget information as well that may or may not be helpful for you. But some definitions that I included that I want to go over are, you have, as you start reading through these budget documents and you start getting familiar with these, a couple definitions that I pulled in here that I want you guys to be aware of is budget authority is the permission to obligate money. So this is set in appropriation or authorizing law, which is the appropriations bills that get passed. Okay. So this is where an RFP's funding clause ultimately tracks back to, is the budget authority. Then you have a base discretionary budget authority. And this is the really important one. And this is part of the budget authority subject to the annual caps in the 302B allocations. And this is where 90% or more of the competed services and IT contracts are. Okay. Then you'll see the other ones, which are mandatory budget authorities, which are spending written permanently into a law. This includes entitlements, some loan programs. These things are rarely competed. They're mainly benefits, payments, or direct loans. So there's not a lot of contractor activity there. And then the other one that you're going to see are emergency and overseas contingencies. These are exempt from the caps and provided in separate supplements. So if that's something that you guys, that's money that you guys chase, then you can look at those as well. And sometimes that emergency funding will drive sudden spikes in task order volumes. Okay. So here's the budget changes. Again, you know, we haven't had the full budget fight yet. So let's talk about what people are fighting over, because that's fun, right? So kind of wanted to summarize where people in the Senate are right now. Where are our senators? Where are their headspaces? And we have the Senate. I grouped them into buckets. you guys can disagree or agree. It doesn't really matter. These are what these senators are saying. So the fiscal hawk blockade. We got Rand Paul and Ron Johnson. They are saying that they're going to vote no unless the bill shaves off more of the debt. So I think the total debt increase from this budget that was passed the House, the total increase was like $4 trillion. So they're not happy about that. Johnson calls the House plan, quote, so far off the mark, grotesque. Then we have Senator Scott and Mike Lee privately lobbying colleagues for parallel amendments that would cap new borrowing and force deeper agency rescissions. The Senate centrist and social safety net, there's a lot of anxiety around Medicare and Medicaid. Suzanne Collins is uncomfortable with the Medicaid cuts. Josh Hawley calls for slashing working class benefits morally wrong and politically suicidal. And so there is a balance here between the fiscal hawks and the program protectors. Defense hawks. So Washington Post had a great article yesterday about the Armed Forces Committee hearing in the Senate. Senators are not happy about not knowing what the DoD's full budget plan is. So in the House budget, I think DoD spending grows by something like 13%, getting somewhere around $1 trillion a year without delivering the full budget plan. So the quote from that hearing that I thought was fun was the chair, Mike Rogers, told Army leaders, we need to see your math. So DoD showed up without a full plan from 25 to 29 about what they're going to spend this extra money on. And some of the senators are saying that they are not going to vote to increase that spending until they see the math. And by the way, there was bipartisan support for the budget, so it's not just Republicans here. I think that some of the issue was that there's been kind of vague policy from Secretary Hegseth, and I don't think that the military has figured out what they're going to spend that money on. So they're still working on that. So if you haven't read that article, I recommend going to. It's pretty good. So then President Trump issued a July 4th deadline, and that is conflicting with Senate, I don't know, norms, I guess is the best way to say it. The Senate generally doesn't move very fast. Congress doesn't move very fast. So, but I mean, the White House insists on final passage by Independence Day. Senator Paul and Johnson said that timetable is unrealistic unless the bill is rewritten. So, and they do not have, and by they I mean Republicans, the GOP, does not have the ability to rewrite this bill because that would destroy the reconciliation process. So the reason they're doing the budget reconciliation process is because the GOP has a very slim majority in the House and a very slim majority in the Senate. And particularly the issue is in the Senate with a process called cloture, where you need 60 votes to progress a bill to the Senate floor. And that would give Democrats a tremendous amount of authority, or not authority, but power to influence the outcome of the bill. So that's why this process needs to work the way it is. And then there's a lot of House GOP folks who are second guessing their votes. So the budget was passed 215 to 214, and some folks are not really happy about what they voted for, and are kind of regretting that. So that might make its way into the Senate in one form or the other. Obviously, Elon Musk is out there raising a lot of noise about it as well. Freedom Caucus members who voted for the bill are saying that they're going to oppose the Senate version unless it comes back with steeper cuts and more border and security sweeteners. So yeah, you guys understand. So some of the flashpoints here, this is just a summary table. We have this debt limit of $4 trillion that this bill creates through finalizing the Tax Cut and Jobs Act, which Trump passed in 2017 or 2018, something like that. So Paul, Johnson, and Scott all want to strip or shrink the increase. So it's a combination of new spending and the tax cuts that are made permanent that are going to add $4 trillion to the debt, according to the Congressional Budget Office. So there's also Medicaid and SNAP trims. So Collins and Howley are very upset by that, or I don't know if upset's the right word, concerned. They want to soften or drop the healthcare cuts, which is in direct, that would increase the debt limit of that $4 trillion. So those two things are mutually exclusive. And then Scott and Cruz are wanting to take the foreign aid rescissions that got cut out of the Department of State and out of USAID and redirect those back into DHS for more border security. So under the House bill, that budget just goes away. Scott and Cruz want to increase DHS's budget to increase border security. And then defense top line transparency. This is a big deal from Graham and Wicker. They want to see the full 25 to 29 fiscal years detail before they vote. So that's probably going to be the major sticking point and the thing that holds everybody up, because that's a lot of work to do. And the military leaders were not prepared yesterday to provide that information. So that might delay things as well. Something to keep in mind is that the GOP can only lose 3 votes. So every one of these issues might swing the numbers. And I think what we want to do is treat the House top lines as provisional kind of numbers and planning, not final figures. All right, so what does this all mean for our pipeline? So what I did is I went out and tried to give you guys a roadmap of things that are coming up or major vehicles that have been competed and we're waiting awards and where a lot of this budget may go. Okay, so I think for us as business development managers, as P&L leaders, if you're in charge of sales, I think you need to review your pipeline of IDIQs and GWACs and make sure that it's up to date and that you update the forecasts for whatever you're planning to do for resources, and if you are including any bookings in your forecast for that. All right, so I went into the sub programs of the large 12 appropriations bills and kind of pulled out the major pluses, right? Where's the money going? So a lot of cuts have been advertised and we're all tracking the cuts. But where's the money going, right? So defense is 1% increase up to $833 billion. There's going to be an additional $4 billion in missiles and precision munitions, and then a 4.5% pay raise to all troops. Hooray. 15% for the junior enlisted. That's awesome. As an enlisted guy myself, that would have been nice back when I was in the Army. The hot sub accounts here to watch out for: Indo-PACOM posture, long-range fires, Guam missile defense, and AI and ML R&D inside of DARPA. And the contract avenues there are AMCOM Express recompete, which is expected to Q1 of fiscal year 26. I haven't seen anything. I've seen Astro has an on-ramp expected for fiscal year 26. I haven't seen anything concrete, but there are rumors about Astro opening back up, so that might be another one. Seaport Next Gen has rolling emissions. You can bid on that anytime. AMCOM is the Army Aviation Missile Command, by the way. AMCOM, I'm sorry. So then there's infrastructure. That's getting a 1% increase as well. This is $90.5 billion. There's a modest uptick in discretionary funds here. The hot programs of the Federal Aid Highway Obligation and Authority, the FRA Grade Crossing Safety, and the FAA Next Gen Tower upgrades. I very much hope that they get on that one, particularly if you guys fly a lot. Contract avenues here: Department of Transportation IDIQ Design and Engineering Support Services 5, DESS 5. And that's expected in Q1 of fiscal year 26. And then the FAA EFAST period of performance goes through 2027. And currently the FAA is considering its recompete strategy now. So if you're an FAA contractor, now's the time to start doing capture on that. Healthcare and VA, we got a -4% here, which drops down this spending bucket to $147.5 billion. And a lot of that cut is driven by the military construction cuts. But there are advanced appropriated VA medical care that stays fully funded through fiscal year 26. That's a 2-year bucket of money, and that's $131 billion, particularly as the EHR modernization and sustainment, community care network, and the VA construction backlog for the medical centers. Contract avenues there, the T4NG2 is awaiting its protest decision. DHA, MHS Genesis sustainment task orders. The HHS CISP4 is still in protest as well. At some point, hopefully there'll be awards and on-ramps for that. Tech and cyber is another large kind of sub-account that I went into here. This is the biggest percentage gainer. There's an $11 billion add to NASA and NSF to back CHIPS and Science Act. So if you guys are working with any of the foundries or any of the large chip manufacturers, there's additional money there once they ever unfreeze the program and get back to evaluating awards that were submitted. There's also Artemis and large increases to AI and quantum R&D. The hot sub-accounts here are the NSF TIP Directorate, which is a 5% increase, NASA Space Tech, which is 2%, and NIST Quantum Labs are receiving a 1% bump. NASA SUP 6, the award's expected in Q4 of 25. Fingers crossed. I mean, there's got to be over 1,000 awards on that one. GSA Alliant 3 awards are expected in Q1 of fiscal year 26. Polaris has a notice to proceed once protests are resolved. And then there's DHS First Source 3. And those GAO and court rulings are expected in mid-2025 sometime, so coming up on that. Border Security at DHS has seen a 4.9% increase. That's going to take up these 302B funding tables. That's where all of this information came from, to almost 65 billion. So this is for CBP and ICE for surveillance towers, autonomous ground sensors, and migrant processing facilities. So there's a couple interesting vehicles here. The CBP Regional Multi-Domain Awareness Capability IDIQ, RMAC. That draft RFP is out on sam.gov right now. So if you guys are in sensors for DoD, this is a great way to diversify and get into DHS. DHS P25 Land Mobile Radio Services BPA and the DIU Border Tech OTA. The next call is expected in July of 25. So that's coming up soon as well. And then the big one that we just marketed yesterday, not to be confused with the Strategic Homeland Intervention Enforcement Logistics Division, MDA just released the Scalable Homeland Innovative Enterprise Layered Defense, which is the SHIELD IDIQ. And this is specifically from Trump's executive order on the Golden Dome. This pre-solicitation notice dropped a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, and we are expecting a draft RFP in June of 25, so sometime in this month. This is a massive $151 billion ceiling with a 10-year period of performance. This is not all of the scope, by the way. This is just a summary of the scope. It's a huge, huge, huge scope. The good news about this one is that everybody who meets the minimum qualifications will be given an award. So if you qualify and you're deemed technically acceptable, you'll get an award just like SUP 6. So this is a tremendous opportunity if you do any of the work that is within the scope. Again, the pre-solicitation notice is up on sam.gov, and so I'd recommend you read that. We just did a newsletter about it yesterday, so you guys can check that out too. All right, so what does this mean for us, right? What do we do? What are some of the practical recommendations for us as BD leaders, right? So I think the first thing we need to look at is to combat pipeline drag. We need to increase the number of opportunities in the pipeline. So what I've seen with doing business development consulting for the last 13 years for a lot of large and successful companies is generally the traditional wisdom is about 2 to 3x your growth goal is the total pipeline value. I think given all of these changes, all of these slowdowns, the cancellations that may not have been made public yet, I think we need to double down and focus on growing that pipeline to 3 to 4x, whatever our growth goal is, to try to make up for this pipeline drag concept, right? Shifting whatever capacity you have towards recompetes and quick turn task orders on vehicles you already hold. You got to defend your incumbency. So if you have any upcoming major recompetes and you haven't started working on those and you haven't started, doing a deep dive into any of the potential issues or any of the potential risks, you need to start now. It's getting harder to win new work, so we have to make sure that we win and defend our current work. The other thing is a lot of people are starting to shift their program staff who got cut either on a subcontract or on one of their prime contracts. They're starting to shift them into BD. So they're taking their superstars, they're really awesome people, and trying to find a place for them on overhead or G&A. If that is you and you need to get them trained, reach out to us and we can develop either a custom training package for them, or we can put them through the apprenticeship program. And it's the most comprehensive, most effective, and cheapest way to train your staff. We also have a lot of material on contract growth as well. So that's certainly an option too. We want to plan for increased competition. So I think as we're looking forward and we're looking at our strategic level deals in our pipeline, enhanced competitive analysis and price to win is going to be something that can help combat the decrease in probability of winning from more people bidding. So if we know who's bidding, what they're going to be offering, maybe what they're going to be pricing, we can plan for that and capture. We can market to the customer. We can try to change some of the evaluation factors to give ourselves an advantage. Definitely need to expand searches into OTAs. That's something. So as the FAR 2.0 rewrite is ongoing, President Trump issued the executive order ordering all the contracting officers to start using the draft FAR 2.0. I've heard some resistance to doing that, but OTAs are going to be expanded. That's used through a contracting service vehicle called CSOs. Also check out SBIRs for calls. These two things can bypass CR limits. So OTAs are going to increase, and the SBIRs are, a lot of money is going into R&D as well. So the SBIRs might start seeing some of those topics come through DOD and Department of Energy and NSF and NIH. We're going to start seeing those topics trickle down from the administration's priorities. We also need to diversify agencies. So start looking into agencies who are getting budget increases. What past performance and capabilities can you market? What contracts can you qualify for? If you're providing ground sensors for the Army, DHS is looking for ground sensors on the border right now. So that's an easy kind of switch over, especially if you have proven technologies in a theater of operations somewhere. That would be tremendous opportunity for you to expand. I'd also recommend rebaselining your forecast by adding the CR drag factor. So as you're stage gate modeling your revenue targets, we want to make sure that those are realistic. So a couple ideas here. Make sure you're having your weekly pipeline meetings. This is one of those things that when the BD leaders stop going, they stop happening. So make sure you're there, make sure you're running them, make sure you're looking at your new stuff and reevaluating the stuff that's already in your pipeline, particularly your IDIQ and GWAC pipeline. So what are the current updates on the vehicles that you're currently pursuing? And then I kind of thought about a couple of metrics here that might be useful as if I'm not a government contractor, but if I were, things that I would think about looking at to see where this pipeline drag is hitting me the hardest. So I call it the drag index. I just made that up this morning. And I was thinking the number of active pursuits divided by the number forecasted 6 months ago. So what this would be is, are the active pursuits that are in the pipeline less than they were 6 months ago? And that would tell me that I need to get more opportunities in the pipeline, right? And I also thought about the diversity ratio. This isn't really a common metric that a lot of people use, but how concentrated are you in one agency? So I would recommend a revenue forecast outside the top three agencies that you currently have. So maybe your goal should be greater than 35%, whatever it is. I think that this is uh, a critical time to start diversifying your portfolio if you haven't started already. And then I might also look at my P-win, considering the increased impact from competition on the forecast. So maybe you drop your P-win down a few points and see if what that does to your bookings goal and your growth forecast for the year. So that might be, I'm just thinking about different things that might help out and give you guys some insight into where the risks are in the BD pipeline. All right, well, I hope this was helpful, guys. I want to go over the next steps and resources, and then we'll have a few minutes for questions here. So at OST, we provide market analysis. We do deep dives into SIPR topics and IDIQs and GWAG portfolios. We help establish the business development strategy if it isn't already, and document the ideal opportunity profile. We do a lot of work in pipeline management for a lot of clients who are seeking to grow their pipelines. We qualify a lot of opportunities for larger businesses. For smaller businesses, this qualification is more like a capture plan than it is a qualification. So if you're unfamiliar with qualifications, think of it as a capture plan. We provide a lot of other ad hoc capture support, including black hats and price to win support. Please, help click that Calendly link there. Schedule some time with me to talk about your BD needs. What are you seeing? What are you struggling with? What do you need help with? We can. A lot of times for our active clients, we make introductions when there's a gap on the team. We don't guarantee that because it's more of like targets of opportunities, but we've had over 1,000 clients since 2020 that we've supported. So just in the last 4.5 years, I think we're at 1,100 clients right now, something like that. So we've know a lot of people in the industry and can help put teams together during capture. We also have a subcontractor portal where you can upload your capabilities for opportunities. We use this database a lot when we don't know anybody off the top of our head that has kind of niche capabilities for larger kind of pursuits. We'll go into this portal here, and I think we have over 150 companies signed up in there right now and have made introductions that have resulted in teaming arrangements from that. So, and then of course we regularly publish updates to the major contacts or our newsletter and blog. So stay up to date with what we're tracking and what we're putting out. And those are the emails there. So this QR code will take you to the schedule if you'd like to do that. So, all right, guys, let's happy to stick around and chat about what you guys are seeing, what kind of questions you all have, and kind of spend the next 10 minutes talking about that. All right, what do we got here? Can I have info on the apprenticeship program? Absolutely. So if you would please just shoot me a quick email here on this slide, whoever asked that, and I will respond back with all of that info. There are, depending on which state you live, there are subsidies, stimulus programs, I guess. So like Maryland, for example, will cover almost, I think, over half of the apprenticeship cost. So, do you see USDA status surviving consolidation or going over to, is that Stratus? Do you see USDA Stratus? So I'm not familiar with that vehicle. GSA is consolidating their category management in common IT goods and services. That executive order, which is 14240, I think, specifically calls out common IT goods and services, which is IT hardware, software, and services. So if USDA Stratus falls within that, then it might potentially get merged into GSA. I haven't specifically heard about that happening. But maybe. I don't, if task orders are still coming out on it, then probably not going to get canceled. The GSA is looking to consolidate as much buying power as possible, so maybe. Any other questions, guys? Those are the only two that have come through so far. Nothing in the Q&A. All right, well, I'll give it a couple minutes. Otherwise, I'll give you guys a few minutes back. And of course, you can reach out and ask questions privately if you prefer to do that as well. Do you charge an hourly rate or retainer? So we do have retainer-based services about pipeline management and capture support. Usually our ad hoc support is hourly. On proposals, it's hourly. We have also done various IDIQs and GWACs that are scorecard based on a fixed price basis. By the way, Oasis Plus at some point should have another on-ramp once they sort out the protest that's going on. So last year they were planning on doing the on-ramp beginning of this year. And that was paused with the executive orders and what was going on with Doge. But at some point, Oasis Plus will have another on-ramp. So if you didn't qualify last year for it, you should definitely look at it again. That will be seeing a lot of money go through it, a lot of spending go through it once that goes live. Any news on SP4 award or getting canceled? And you guys are most welcome, by the way, those of you who are saying thank you. So I think CISP4 has a Court of Appeals hearing. I thought I had put that here. I don't remember. I believe it should be getting sorted out here in the next couple months. So I believe there was a Court of Appeals lawsuit, and I remember reading somewhere that it's looking to get sorted soon. So fingers crossed. I know that one's been sitting out there for a couple years now, so some sour grapes on that. All right, guys. Well, with that, I'll call it a day. Certainly, here's my contact information. This is my cell phone. You can give me a call or text me, and I'll respond. Email me. You can reach out, and certainly. So expected time for the budget to pass is 7/4. That's what Trump wants. Whether or not the Senate complies or not is a different story. There's still a lot of fights to happen, and I think the biggest holdup is going to be the DoD budget. The Armed Services Appropriations Committee was not happy. They were frustrated that the Army and other military leaders didn't show up with the budget book like they were supposed to justify and kind of explain what they wanted to spend all that new money on. So I don't know how long that's going to take. I suspect that's probably going to be the thing that takes the longest because that's a lot of money to allocate to new programs. So we'll see. The deadline is September 30th. So that's the actual deadline. The one that Trump said was July 4th. So that's, it happened in the House. Trump said the deadline was Memorial Day, and Speaker Johnson delivered. So maybe the Senate will too. All right, with that, guys, feel free to reach out. I'm going to go get some lunch because I'm hungry. I hope you guys have a great Thursday, and I hope to see you all on the next webinar. See y'all.